Do you think the ABC has behaved in a reprehensible manner by not immediately telling the authorities of what they'd uncovered about animal abuse in Indonesia, to give the Australian authorities time to stop cattle going to those particular abattoirs?
Well, put it this way, I don't think that any of this was very well handled, either by the ABC or by the government. What should have happened is that as soon as this cruelty was observed, it should have been reported to the authorities both in Indonesia and in Australia, so that it could be dealt with straight away. And then, of course, at the same time, it would be perfectly legitimate to mention it on the air, though I would have been careful, if I had been covering the story, to try and get some comment from those who were doing this to find out why they were doing it or what had happened here. Was it an accident? Was it a one-off? Were they always doing this? What's the story? And I didn't really see very much of that, so I don't know how much of that they did. But I do think that this was not well handled by your government. I don't think you should close down an entire industry at this end for several weeks at a time, when there was really no evidence, as far as I could see, that the industry at this end was in any way at fault.
So the Australian Broadcasting Commission,
yes,
under the guise of Four Corners,
yes,
knew these cattle were suffering in this way, had the film, and didn't notify the Australian authorities. They waited to have an exclusive. That kind of behaviour is absolutely shocking. Imagine.
Well, I can understand them wanting to have the exclusive, but it seems to me that if they'd done it in an organised way, they could have had the exclusive and still told the authorities at the same time. So if they did hold it back, because I have no knowledge of this before I even came to Australia, but if they did hold back the film and not reveal this straight away, then they are almost as much at fault as those who were directly inflicting the cruelty on the animals.
Yes.
But that's an if, because I don't know what the circumstances are.
I mention this to you because it's another good reason for Australia to be rid of the ABC.
Yes, I think certainly from their treatment of me, I have not felt that they were in any way trying to give me a fair go. And so I think perhaps the time has come to take away their funding, and perhaps if they go on like this, to bring them to court for criminal offences, including perhaps animal cruelty in this case, if you're right about it, and also including conduct likely to cause a breach of the Queen's peace, which is certainly an offence still in the United Kingdom, and I hope it still is here, because some of their conduct and the way they've treated me is not really consistent with normal, rational behaviour.
Thank you, Lord.
And so they are, yeah.
Coming back to the carbon tax,
yes,
Julia Gillard has told the Australian people that the tax will yield $11 billion in the first year.
Yes.
The current loan rate from China is $1 billion a week.
Yes.
Which means the impost of this tax is only going to pay for 11 weeks' borrowings from China.
It won't even do that, because nearly all the money is being handed back to subsidise the 90% of the population that she says will be adversely affected by it.
How much is going to the United Nations?
So virtually none of it, I think, because there'll be none there. And the sort of prices they're mentioning at the moment, there will be no spare cash, because they've also got to set up a monumental series of bureaucracies to make this work. And they will always demand to be paid before anybody else gets any money. That's the way these things always work.
She's already promised, I think, $600 million in the first year, but I understand that's been increased.
I don't see that happening. I mean, I think that there'll be virtually no free money.
It'll be another Julia fib.
Well, it's not for me to use those phrases for your Prime Minister, but I think there is no rationality behind the construction of this tax, even if there were a problem with the climate, even if this tax were thought to be something that might solve it. If you take the money from what she calls the 500 polluters, it was 1,000, it seems to have come down to 500 in the last week, and then you pay the money back to all the people whom the 500 polluters have to raise their charges to, all you've got is a money go round. You've got nothing coming out for the government at all.
What can be her real motive? What's a real motive?
Well, I mean,
here
I'm speculating, and I've got to be careful, but it looks to me as though she may be trying to wreck the mining industry, because the mining industry is a big contributor to the Liberal and National Party fund. That would be the sort of thing that socialists have done elsewhere in the world. I wouldn't be surprised if they stooped that low here too. I can certainly see no other rational explanation for what's being done.
Hopefully we'll find a Labor Party politician that will recant.
It only takes one, as I understand it, with the numbers being very tight. But the difficulty is that, of course, anyone who shows the slightest sign of wavering can exploit that position to get promises of wealth, position, jobs, pensions, all sorts of things, fancy offices. And this is what I think has happened.
Have you heard
to independents? They must have been given all sorts of promises to keep them in the firm.
Have you heard the promise that was given to Oakeshott, according to Oakeshott, Rob Oakeshott, the member?
Yes, he's one of the independents.
He has been promoted to chair a renewable energy commission with a budget of about $3.2 billion. Do you think that's a reasonable fee to pay such a man to betray his electorate?
Well, again, this is the sort of thing that tends to happen in politics when the votes are very finely balanced. The government has enormous powers of patronage, which is what this is, setting up an organisation, putting somebody in charge of it whose vote you need, and doing this at taxpayers' expense. And in most countries, if they saw that going on, they would not vote for that government again. But the other measure that you could take is that I understand that the government is at the moment offering $250,000 to anyone who will stand up and be a champion for the carbon tax. Now that is a straightforward bribe to support contentious government legislation. In most countries, and I think probably even in Australia, that is illegal. It's a criminal offence. And if somebody had the guts to stand up and tell the police this is going on and produce the evidence from the speeches that I've seen saying that they're doing this, then the police would be bound to investigate. And if they found that indeed this was a fraudulent abuse of taxpayers' money to buy political support for a measure going through the Parliament at the moment, then those responsible would be arrested and tried, and I would think imprisoned. If it's illegal, I don't know, but in Britain it probably would be illegal.
Lord Monckton, I really sincerely thank you for being in Australia, and you're always welcome here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.